Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about the sort of experience that makes a developer the most valuable. So let's get into it. So basically the question in question here is that what experience makes a developer the most valuable, or what would you choose? What type of experience should you acquire in order to be considered a valuable developer? And the short answer here is basically, well, work experience. Work experience is the thing that dictates most of what your value is. Actual hands-on experience building things and going through the process of delivering something and understanding the sort of considerations that you have to make in order to make something a viable solution. And that might not sound all that exciting, but it actually is. The reason why this is very exciting to companies is because, in case you didn't know this, every single company out there that has developers from different backgrounds and different levels of experience. And the thing is that you will reach a certain point in which you can, in theory, just solve any sort of problem. You can divine, based on your current skills, how to solve a problem. Now, the issue with that is that although you can solve the problem, you have no guarantees as a company that the developer who's going to solve that problem is going to solve it in an efficient manner. And this is why work experience and hands-on experience is so valuable, because although you can hire a developer of a certain level of skill to solve your problem, you don't really know if they're going to solve it in a way that fits your needs. And this is kind of where this holy union between soft skills and hard skills, or like actual coding skills, come to play. Because I can give you an example. I've worked with a coworker he was completely fresh out of college, and for some reason, I don't know how we got to this point, but at the specific situation, he got to be in charge of basically delivering a translation solution for the projects at the company. Now, if you have done any form of work on an international project of any sort of size, you will know how hard it is to write an efficient, or rather how error-prone and how unlikely you are to, without any sort of a prior experience, to get a translation system and process correct. It is damn hard. It is by far one of the hardest things a company can go through. Now, the problem with this is that although it is easy, like anybody, I challenge you guys as well. I know for a fact that if you know any basic coding, you will start thinking about the basic cases. Okay, you probably need some way of adding text to a page that is a variable of some sort, and then you need to get those translations from somewhere. I mean, anybody who knows anything about software development can kind of figure out how to build a translation system. The problem doesn't come from just the base case. The problem comes later on, because without having the experience of actually doing this and involving people and having translators, because as soon as you have translations, now you need to ask the question, okay, where are you going to get the translations? When are you going to put them in? Do you need a release schedule? What happens if you have multiple languages but different variations of the same language? What if a customer wants different overrides to customize their exact translations in a certain set of languages? What happens if the service that provides your translations goes down? Are you going to use caching? If you're going to use caching, how are you going to store how are you actually going to bundle your translations? How are you going to keep them up to date? How do you know if you have everything in sync so you don't release one set of translations where there are some keys and some translations where there are no keys? All of these sort of questions starts to pile up, right? And this is why actual work experience, and to have been working on a working system of some sort, is so valuable, because these questions you do not have an answer to. Even if you are a master programmer, you will not know all of the things that you need to think about before you actually do this, because it's a journey of discovery for you, just as it is for anybody. So knowing how to and actually have built something is the thing that makes you valuable as a software developer. To learn from the experiences that you have and to bring those learnings with you into the next thing that you build. And apart from that, and this kind of ties into work experience as well, but it's also to have apart from just raw coding experience, building certain things that's one part of it, but the other part is to manage stakeholders and act as it doesn't have to be a mentor, but a technical salesperson or having a supporting role towards the sales team within your company. Basically managing stakeholders, that's what it is. And having a real life experience with that as well is also immensely valuable, because the problem is, and this is one of the things that a lot of developers complain about, that there's a lot of, it's kind of funny in a way, because I had this old coworker who mentioned something that I think is absolutely true. And basically what he said was that the programmer within an IT company is the perfect unit of a worker, because every other thing or any other role you have within the IT company is basically a derivative of the programmer. So if you're going to be a salesperson, if you don't know anything about your system, or you don't have the answers to your questions, and when you go into a sales meeting, you will need to talk to the programmers to get the answer. And usually what happens, and this happens quite a lot, the salespeople go into a sales meeting, the customer has a bunch of questions, they don't have any idea how to answer any of these questions, so they have to go back and forth quite a few times with their technical discussions with their programmers, and then come back and schedule. The whole sales process can take quite a long time, just because they don't have the technical skills to actually answer all of these questions or give the customers all these answers. It's actually not uncommon that you have an individual or a programmer of some sort within the sales team just basically comes and asks questions, or they are actually asked to join in the late stages of the sales process in order to answer all of these technical questions, especially if I can speak from experience here, especially if you're doing integrations with third parties and selling an integration platform of some sort. So having a developer who has experience with this sort of thing, that actually really understands how a sales process works, and what type of documentation and this sort of content that they need to provide in order to close the deal, is also immensely valuable. And I would say that these are probably the two most important experiences a programmer can have. And this one basically I can promise you now, if you are good at managing stakeholders, that's like the short circuit to becoming a manager. So what I want you to take away from this is basically that the experiences that are highly valued within software developers is actual experience. You have actually built a production-ready working version of something. Knowing kind of how something works is valuable, but the most valuable thing is that you have actual experience, because that is the thing that the life lessons are much more valuable than theory. Most of the time it's going to outweigh it, because, as I said, although you can in theory solve the problem, that doesn't mean that you will think about all these different cases that you need to consider up front. But with the experience and this sort of thing, you will have a different mindset than if you start by just going from scratch without ever having built something before. You will basically know more about how to build and structure things than a person who has equal skill but not the experience. And secondly, the most valuable experience that you can have as a developer is to have the ability to manage stakeholders. Are you accustomed to supporting sales, or do you know what questions your customers will have? Do you know what type of documentation you need to support? What type of what considerations do you have to make for the system, so that your customers will actually enjoy using the system, or are going to be very likely to sign a deal with you? That sales mindset, that's also something that comes from work experience, actually knowing and having a full understanding of business as opposed to just being a code monkey. And that's also extremely valuable. It's the thing that's going to make you a manager for sure. Have a great day.